In conversation as a cook, the question inevitably comes up, what do you like to cook the most? And for me, it's always been baking, and specifically bread. It's this wonderful, simple alchemy of yeast, flour, water, and salt. With these four simple ingredients, the baker makes a tremendous impact on the final dough by timing, by technique, by the temperature of the ingredients. And so it's that beautiful dance between those variables that make bread making so dynamic. Welcome back. My name is Corinne Phillips, and this is Fresh Pea Cooks. For those of you familiar with the channel, you'll know that I've made a lot of pizza videos, but I've never actually shown you how to make my favorite at-home pizza dough. So this recipe comes from this fabulous book, Mozza by Nancy Silverton. Now, what I love about Nancy's recipes is she doesn't dumb it down. When you make Italian food from this book, it is so reminiscent of being in Italy. This is not an Americanized take on Italian food. In saying that, she doesn't skimp on the steps. And some of these steps, because this is such a simple recipe, some of these steps are really vital for flavor development and the development of the dough, the structure of it. So I've messed around with this recipe a lot, and it's very flexible. For those of you who are bakers, you know that. But I'm gonna follow it to the T today. We're going to start by dissolving the yeast in water and adding a little bit of flour. Now this pre-ferment needs an hour and a half to set so that the yeast can fully dissolve and proof, which increases the flavor in your dough. If you're serious about baking at home, get a scale. Now this is Escali. I have it on my Amazon store. I'll put a link up here. It's like a $20 scale, but bakers speak in weight, and that's just for reliability. This one just has a nice like pressed pad so you can wipe it off and everything stays really clean. So I definitely, of the cheap scales, this is my favorite. And for those of you new to the channel, I put all of the recipes in their entirety below. If you just click show more, you'll see the whole thing written out, so you don't need to scribble furious notes. Now this is instant yeast. Nancy does call for active dry. Active dry is a little bit bigger granules, and it needs to be proofed in water. So this step could be omitted if you use instant. The only reason I'm using instant is because that's all I have right now. And there is a conversion for active dry to instant. For 1 teaspoon of active dry, it's 0.67 teaspoons of instant. So you want to make sure that you don't just substitute them straight away, because your dough will rise faster and overproof if you're not ready for it. We're going to put in our yeast and part of our water and some of our flour. Next, we're going to add in what I call our flavor enhancers. This is wheat germ and rye flour. Now, for those of you that's seen the video, the pizza video I did with my brother, the hilarious video of him making this recipe, I gave him rye berries, so I'm sparing you the drama of the rye berries and grinding of the rye berries. I got chastised a little bit for that, so I'm just going straight up grocery store bought rye flour. So those go in, and it just adds a richness. Now this is barley malt. Barley malt is that delicious flavor in really good pizza dough and wonderful bagels. It's not unlike honey, but maltier. And there's a little bit of that in here too. We'll put that in later, but barley malt syrup is wonderful. If you don't have it, don't buy a whole thing of this for making pizza dough once. Use it. It's really yummy, but you can also substitute honey. I'm just going to take a wooden spoon and get all of this flour hydrated. Once your dough is fully hydrated, cover it with a wet towel and let it sit, let it proof for about an hour and a half. Now that hour and a half is variable. That is at spring and fall here when it's about 70 degrees. It's a little bit warmer than that now because this is summer. So I'm going to check this, and after about an hour, which I suspect from making this recipe repeatedly, is going to be plenty of time for our dough to have proofed. Now make sure that you wet your towel, because you don't want a crust. You don't want anything to inhibit our rising activity. So I'm trying to minimize my use of plastic in the kitchen, and for baking bread, wet towels work perfectly. We're going to leave our salt out just until we get everything mixed up and combined. And you want to make sure you start out with the dough hook. And we're going to mix it for maybe 2 minutes just to get everything good and incorporated. Okay, everything looks good and mixed up. Now I'm going to add my salt. For the second phase of this dough, we want to develop structure. We want to really develop that gluten and what holds that crust and makes that really chewy good bread. And so we're going to bump the speed up to like medium low-ish, speed number 2 on the KitchenAid. And we're going to go ahead and knead it with the dough hook for 6 to 8 minutes. You want to see it start to pull away from the sides of the bowl, but not be so dry that it's a big, dough ball in the middle. If it's cleaning the bowl, clearing all the sides and the bottom, add just a little bit more water. And if it's not clearing the sides of the bowl, give it the full 6 or 7, 8 minutes, and then maybe just add like a little pinch of flour and give it a couple more minutes. It's a pretty wet dough. If you're new to bread baking, I want to introduce you to a very handy little thing. It's called a dough scraper, and it just fits right in your bowl and scoops your dough out. Okay, so it's been 30 minutes. Our dough is looking beautiful, and we'll go ahead and turn it out onto our lightly floured cutting board. Now we have this goopy mass here that went off the floury part. We're going to pretend that this is an envelope. So we want to dig, ooh, this is pretty wet, dig under one side, fold, dig under this side, stretch and fold, dig under this side, stretch and fold. Now we don't want to tear the dough because we don't want to compromise its gluten structure. We just want to give it more body. So already making those 4 little folds has made our dough less like and a little bit more upright. So that's the technique. Now I'm gonna flour your board next time a little more than me. I'm gonna get this back into its bowl, set it aside. Now at this point you can start on your sauce and you can prep all of your topping materials. If you're frying sausage or anything like that, you can go ahead and do that. You can start your oven. You want your oven to preheat for at least an hour, and that's with a pizza stone, and it's on high, as high as you can get. My oven only goes up to 550, and so that's what I get. I am going to be making this outside in the pizza oven, so that gets really hot, and I'm going to go ahead and start that fire now. So while the dough was proofing this last time, I went ahead and made a really simple 5-minute no-cook tomato sauce that will be better than anything you've ever had, guaranteed. And I'll go ahead and put the recipe here. If you're watching this video right after it comes out, it's going to be a couple days before that video gets released, so check back if it's not there yet. So our dough is relaxed and it's kind of flattened out a little bit, and it's also not doubled, but it's probably gained about 1/3 of its size. So this time I'm going to add a little more flour. I like to dump a little pile. Okay, so we'll have roughly, this will be roughly 6 pizzas down the middle. And then roughly into thirds. And don't sweat the exact equal weights. You're not a pizzeria, so just a manageable pizza size ball. So these guys, I like to just fold them. You don't want to shape them too much, but you don't want them just to spread out onto your board. So if you have like shiny bits kind of oozing, just get them together a little bit. Let me get them all over here together and let them sit for 5 minutes. When we come back, I'll show you how to shape them. So now we're going to take our dough, spread it out a little bit, fold it in, and then fold this up, this one, and then we're going to kind of tuck and roll. You don't want to degas completely, but you want to make kind of a tight ball, and then we'll put it seam side down and just kind of, so this motion is like a pushing under and a turning at the same time. You don't want it sticking to your hands because it kind of ruins the shape. So what this is doing is stretching that gluten to form a nice skin so that the dough kind of holds together. And then we have a little ball. We'll put it there and do another one. And let them proof for an hour. Now at this point, if you're making this in the morning and the early afternoon and you want them to hold until dinner, now would be the time that you would put these into your refrigerator, and you can hold them for about 6 or 7 hours without them overproofing. We're going to eat them right away, so I'm going to give them 1 hour to proof, and then we'll start throwing them into pizzas. And that's it. That's all there is to dough. It doesn't take a lot of hands-on time, but it does take patience, and it does teach you patience. Now, the reason I love this recipe so much is if I start this by 1 o'clock, we can have pizzas that evening for dinner. So it's not an all-day thing. It's not a 2-day thing like some of my recipes. It's a pretty straightforward introduction into artisan-style dough. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Now I have plenty of videos about me making pizza and the finished product. In the finished product here. So click on over there, and if you want to see them being fired and the whole making of the pizza. But I hope this encourages you to try your hand at making your own homemade pizza dough. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.